5 days, 1,800 miles, 50-year-old bike, temperatures below freezing most of the time, all to look at a few wooden-covered bridges. I must be mad. My last trip to visit some covered bridges in Quebec was cut short, but since I'm now COVID-free, it was time to give it another crack. Never mind that winter hadn't really decided to release its grip yet. I was eager to get rolling. According to a list I'd found, there were something like 80 covered bridges in Quebec. I intended to visit a handful of those in the eastern townships between the St. Lawrence River and the US border. And don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with technical construction details or history, even if I bothered to look into it myself, which I didn't. I planned out a nice little route, taking in half a dozen bridges, as much to provide a focus for the ride as anything else. I'm not a bridge geek, although I am fond of them. But after a late start and quite a few highway miles, 2 bridges was more than enough for the first day. I found a motel in Magog and settled in. Well, here's my room for the night. If I'm looking a bit weather-beaten, I guess it's not too surprising. Boy, a little bit of wind on my cheeks today. Had a couple of beers, had some cheese and bread, that'll do for my supper. And now I'm just going to relax and do nothing. It's a little on the cool side this morning. Don't know if you can see on the bike. There's a little bit of frost. Sitting on everything, it's probably only about -2. I'm slightly embarrassed to admit that despite the clear signage, I sailed past the bridge and rode on for about a mile before I encountered this lovely fellow who redirected me. Sadly, like so many other bridges, it was closed off and covered in graffiti. More bridges followed, some still in use, others verging on the derelict. I was particularly taken with the wooden tree nails on this one. The McDermott Bridge near Cookshire was still in use, crossing this pleasant stream on a quiet country road. While I was having lunch a few miles further on, I noticed a group of bridges along the Matapedia River. By this time, I was frankly getting a little bored with them, but the idea of riding down the Matapedia Valley, then heading out towards the Gaspe Peninsula, struck me as a brilliant idea. So I booted it to Rivière-du-Loup and a night of luxury in the Comfort Inn. It was noticeably chilly in the morning as I booted it up the highway towards Rimouski, glad of the plastic bags I'd wrapped my feet in and the multiple layers I was wearing. Turning inland towards the Matapedia Valley, it was clear that winter was still holding fast. Lac Matapedia was still socked in with ice, and there was no sign that the snowbanks were melting. 2 coffees at the Tim Hortons in Amqui did little to warm me up. Still, no point in complaining. Apart from cool toes, I wasn't faring too badly, and at least it wasn't properly cold. And anyway, there was nobody around to complain to. I did stop at a couple more bridges. Every time I stopped to get the cameras out, my hands got cold, so my enthusiasm was somewhat diminished. It was only about 60 miles from Amqui to Campbellton, New Brunswick, and even though it wasn't exactly on my route, I had to cross the river so I could say I dipped into another province. I decided to head for the village of Percé, and since by now it was quite cold, I didn't stop for many pictures. Percé was closed. I cruised the main street looking for an open motel, but no such luck. I wasn't eager to ride another 40 miles to Gaspe, but I assumed that that was my only option. And then I found this place, the only open motel for miles around. Well, it's cold outside and quite windy, but there's a strong sun. So I think, let's hope that counteracts the effect of the cold. Otherwise, it's going to be a chilly ride. Oh, that sun's going to be strong. Yeah. Yeah, with the sun up, it probably won't be too bad. I'm actually looking forward to it. Breakfast at the Tim's in Gaspe, and then back on the road. This truly is a gorgeous part of the world. With forested hills on one side and the Gulf of St. Lawrence on the other, the road along the south shore snakes over hills, then drops down to the shore in a series of very enjoyable ups and downs. As you can see, one of the advantages of off-season rides is you're rarely harassed by traffic, and I could ride at whatever speed I chose. Indeed, it was often many minutes between vehicles. I'm just going to let this run for a little while so that you get a flavour of what it's like riding in this time of year. But don't switch off just yet, because there's a few more interesting things coming up. Oh, and I do apologize for the lack of engine sound. Once again, I didn't really organize my audio, and the cameras picked up far too much wind noise to make listening to it enjoyable. Despite the snowbanks, the roads were completely clear of icy patches. So although fighting hypothermia was my biggest problem, at least I didn't have to worry about sliding out. The sun was so weak that it wasn't having the slightest impact on the snowbanks, and nothing was melting. Every so often the road drops down to villages along the shore. They must be tough people who live along this coast, as the combination of cruel sea and cruel winter is a brutal mix. There's about a 40-mile section where the road is sandwiched between the hills and the shore, and I was worried that the sea spray would be turning to ice on the road. Fortunately, the freezing point of salty seawater is quite a bit lower than fresh water, so it was staying in its liquid state. Although there are enough ice chunks along the shore in some places to suggest that it did freeze from time to time. Well, the tide's out, but I don't feel like going and doing any paddling around. Although the local wildlife didn't seem to be too worried about it. Well, that was a chilly day. The last hour or two, I think it may have crept up above freezing, and the wind dropped a little bit. But man, those first few hours were pretty tough, and stopping at every Tim Hortons I passed made a bit of a difference too. I could get warmed up. But all in all, a good day. Very scenic, That's a fantastic road along the south shore of the St. Lawrence River. I'd recommend it to anybody who likes long rides with long distances between places. And it's quite scenic. There's high hills on the one side, and the St. Lawrence, well, it's the ocean basically. It's called the Gulf of St. Lawrence, but it's an ocean. Anyway, it was a hell of a day, and the bike just handled and ran beautifully. And now I'm gonna get some food inside me and relax. Some of you will have noticed that I'm back to having YouTube ads on some of my videos. I decided it was stupid to shoot myself in the foot. I make about enough a month from the ads to fill up the Eldorado's tank once, so that's about 200 free miles. And this is the bit where I advertise my motorcycle travel books. You know where to find them. Just search Amazon and/or Audible for Nick Adams Motorcycle. They should pop up. Thanks for watching.